Hi, I'm Marilyn with Rosa Mystica Healing based in Corona, California. And 17 years ago, I had my first experience of spiritual healing. I'm here with Alexander. He had his first experience 9 years ago. And what we have in common is that these healing experiences led us both on the path to become healers ourselves and now teachers, where we're helping our clients transform their lives and embrace God's love. Alexander, tell us about your experience that you had 9 years ago, your first spiritual healing experience. What was that like?
Thank, thank you, Marilyn. So, my first healing experience was in Vienna through two great women who did this work for a couple of years already. And I wasn't expecting much. At that time, I was all into growth of consciousness, reading books, positive thinking. And all of a sudden, I was seeing pictures of God, pictures of the Blessed Virgin Mary, and I was like, am I in the right place here? I was like, what's going on? But I realized they knew a lot. They had a lot of information about my past, and they were able to see pain in my heart that I wasn't even aware of. So it was a pretty intense experience, which I never forgot. And after that, I was like, what just happened? And I was like drawn magnetically there because they also had workshops about grounding. And soon I found myself doing the training because it was like, I need to learn this work. It changed so much for me. And I felt a pull to learn what they were giving to me because uh, I realized that I was gifted, that I was like always experiencing spirits because as a child I was always afraid of ghosts. And there, when I started the training, I understand, wow, all of this, I was just perceiving things as a child, and it explained so much to me that I was hooked from the very first start. And I started getting clean because at that time I was smoking weed, I was smoking cigarettes. So no matter what I learned about consciousness, I never changed those deep rooted habits. But the
Mm.
moment I had my cleansings and I could see what I'm doing to myself, because drugs are basically opening the crown chakra in a non-safe environment. So this was the point where I made the decision, okay, now I'm going to be grounded, I'm going to be here, and I really wanted to learn more so that I could pass on the gift that I received at that time. Marilyn, you said 17 years ago you had your first experience. How was it for you?
Well, 17 years ago, I was carrying so much sadness and anger. I mean, if you looked back at pictures of myself at that time, I actually look like I'm frowning. I just do not look happy. And I had that first healing experience, and I did grow up Catholic, and I had a great love for Jesus, and then when I got into my teen years, I started getting away from that. I was exploring different philosophies. I was into existentialism and even questioning God's existence at one point. And yet I was still searching, right? So when I had this experience, like you, I walked in and I saw the picture of the Blessed Virgin Mary and of Jesus. And the healer asked me, do you believe in God? Do you believe in Jesus? And it's not a religious healing, but I hadn't had anybody ask me that question before. And it really, I said, yes, I do. I do believe, even though I had been questioning, and the healer was able to tell me about a trauma that I had, that there was no way anyone who knew him, who knew me, would ever even know about this trauma. So he had received information, and removed that from me, removed that trauma and all of the negative attached to it that I was holding on within my energy field. And it was like a huge weight was lifted off of me. And I felt so much peace come back to me because it wasn't just the trauma, but it was everything else attached to it, including the spirit leech attachment. And with that gone, that sadness lifted, the anger lifted. I still had a lot of it after the first healing, but not to that level. Not to that level where I was actually having really bad thoughts, of harming myself or feeling like my life is worthless. Why am I here? Why do I have to live this life? Having questions like that. So I did continue to receive the spiritual healings over time. And like you, I felt that I wanted to keep on learning more. I was seeking, and reading the book that you see here behind me is the book about humanity's spiritual plague, right? And the work, this spiritual healing work. Our teacher, Victor Baron, is the author of this book. And I would read this. I got this at my first healing 17 years ago, and I'd read it over and over and over again, trying to understand. There's so much in there that I did not understand. And it explained a lot. It opened up a whole other level of understanding for me that I wanted to learn more. And that's when I started taking the workshops in 2010 when I moved from Toronto to LA. And it was now possible. And at that point, I would say the biggest shift started to happen in my life was when I opened my heart to receive God's love, to recognize, okay, it's God is love and God is within. I don't have to keep on seeking. This isn't religious. It's the truth that God is love, and everyone has that. And I have clients who are not Catholic or even Christian, and this is still available, and it's still the truth that God is love. So accepting that into my heart and allowing that to flow and to love myself more, because I have that within me. I have God within me. So if I'm loving God and receiving that, I'm also loving myself. And that's where even more transformation happened in my life, was clearing the heart, because our heart is magnetic. What we carry in our heart is what we draw to us, because it is actually magnetic. So I was carrying a lot of hurt, a lot of pain, and it was causing me to feel depressed and anxious, everything that I was carrying, and I would attract more of the similar patterns or situations to me, relationships to me, people in my life who would give me more hurt and pain that I was carrying. And when I started to release that and forgive and to fill myself up with that love, is when things started to shift in my life. When I started attracting more people who are resonating with that love, and ultimately, seeing that shift in my relationship, and who I'm with today. So it's a beautiful process, and it's such an honor as a healer to help my clients through this process with releasing what's in their heart, helping to release, trauma at the age of cause, because it gets trapped there, and to really open up to God's love, to embrace God's love, not just as a concept, but to actually really feel it, and to be in conversation, to encourage, that conversation and strengthening of their own intuition. feel like a lot of clients, and this was true of me in the beginning, I had so many questions. I thought, okay, my healer is going to be able to tell me because they can see, you know. And I have clients who will go and receive readings because they want to know what's going to happen, or is this person right for me? But we all have the gift of intuition. Intuition is God talking to us, but we can only receive it if we're in relationship with God, if we're embracing God's love, right? Is that intuition going to work for us? So we don't have to look outside for the answers. We can look within. We'll know it comes as a feeling in your heart or in your gut, whether this is right for me or not, or should I go in this direction? When you are making that time to talk to God through prayer, you know, and just have every day to do that, you start to get those divine messages through your intuition to move forward. And that was such a blessing in my life. That was such a gift. That was a huge transformation when I really began to trust my own intuition because I wasn't clouded by what I was carrying in my energy field any longer.
I love what you're saying, Marilyn. It's really, really nice words, a really great description. I also sensed over the last years that at the beginning I was like soaking up mental information about growth of consciousness, mental concepts, and
Mm-hmm.
also this deep desire to learn. And I was searching so much on the internet, in books, and all of this. And I remember in one healing where actually I was learning a healing, but I received it in order to know what it is. And it was about the Holy Spirit. And it's basically receiving the light from the Holy Spirit to fill up the energy field and to fill up all distortions in the energy field. And when I received that, I was so calm, I was so peaceful, and I was like, huh, this is exactly the high that I was looking for all my life. So I felt so good, and I didn't have to use any substances. And it was for me such a great feeling. I was like, this is what I was searching for. And as also you said, I also see that the heart is really the center of all of this. And our teacher, Victor Baron, what he said again and again in the beginning, which was such a new concept for me, especially from somebody who talks about God so much, was like, you need to love yourself. You need to love yourself. The more you love yourself, the more you can love others, the more you can love God, the more fulfilled you are. And when I started practicing this, I really experienced that the heart is like, it's like, I don't know how big it can get, but in the beginning it was like I just felt a pressure point that this was my heart, right? And over releasing the past, forgiving people, loving myself more, it opened up, and then it becomes this field of joy, of a deep relationship with God, and also of like a compass. It's like guiding me whenever I need something. Before I ask AI or something or Google, I would go into my heart and ask, is this the right path? And I always receive an answer, because what I figured out, when my heart is open, it's like the perfect guide for my life. Yes.
That's beautiful. I love
Yeah.
that. Let your heart guide you.
Yes.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well, I want to talk a little bit about the spiritual healing itself so that people understand like what it is. We've talked about how it transforms and what it was for you and for me, and just a couple examples of clients, but what actually happens in a spiritual healing session? One of the things that always happens is, we're talking about the energy field. Okay. So we're working on the level of spiritual. And when we say spiritual healing, the reason why it's so important to have that connection to God is that the healing is happening at that frequency of God consciousness. Okay. So that any of the spiritual help are resonating at that consciousness of God, which is unconditional love. Okay. Unconditional love is the highest frequency. Okay. And so it's really important if you're seeking a spiritual healer to ask, what do you believe? You know, what is the spiritual help that you're receiving in these spiritual healings? So through God, the healing is happening. Through unconditional love, the healing is happening. But as healers, there are different types of healings that we have been anointed to offer. And the first that happens in all healing sessions at the most basic level is to remove spirit leech attachments, that have come into the energy field. Okay. And then, we work on there's 5 levels of consciousness, the mental, whatever is in the mental thought patterns, on the physical body, where there might be disease, on the emotional, to remove, that hurt, not worthy, any type of self harm or flagellation that you have towards yourself on that emotional level. And then the spiritual, we're dealing with that negative consciousness. Okay, so negativity that's been directed at you. And that could look like, people who are actually practicing witchcraft or curses, any of that negative manipulation that is directed at you. And then finally, the leech consciousness. But as you have more and more healings, there are different types of situations that we can work on, in terms of balancing the chakras. And really, there's so many blessings that come, not just the cleansing, but also blessings that come through the Holy Spirit, through God, through the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Mother of God. It's so beautiful what happens in these. And the removal of trauma, I think, is a big one. And I want to speak to those of you who are listening. If you're listening, a lot of people are carrying religious trauma, and to not let that stand in the way, because these aren't religious healings, but they're done through God. Okay. And God is within us because we're spirit having a physical experience. And our spirit is connected to that light of God. Right. So it's really restoring you to your truth, and bringing your spirit back into your body, into your energy field, so that you have 100% of your strength to go through your life. Right. And to walk on your divine path and connect to your higher self in what you're doing. And that's certainly what's happened for me in my life through the spiritual healing, is to restore me to that wholeness. And it's such a beautiful gift.
I would like to add what Marilyn and I did in the last, in my case, 9 years, in your case, even 17 years, is like both of us, she in California, I in Austria. So we actually met in the last year, the first time. But what we did was going through so many cleansing processes, forgiving those that hurt us, learning to love ourselves. All of this because through our cleansing ourselves, healing ourselves, we're able to give that to others. So we received many, many healings, many blessings. So in order to pass it on, So when we work, what we do is we connect to God. We have our prayers. We even have spiritual hygiene, which means whatever happens, we're not picking up from people and passing it on to the next client. So we are always working in a safe environment, and we connect to God and ask Him for help so that nothing happens that is not of His divine will. And through this is like a safe space where His love comes through us. And it's like, as Marilyn said, this high frequency enables things that are in the energy field like frozen, and they get melted, and all of a sudden they can be moved and they can be removed. And what I also liked, you mentioned the spirit insertion. This is what really hooked me to do this kind of work, because I was into physical body work, I was into body awareness, Feldenkrais, and all of this. But when I got to know the spiritual work, I felt that I'm still not grounded after years of learning those other methods. And what is special about this work, that at the end of every session, no matter which one it is, at the end, we always make sure with a special prayer that the spirit of the person is fully grounded, and that feeling it's just amazing, because you feel heavy in your feet, light in your upper body, and it's like you feel crystal clear and you're at home within yourself. And especially for spiritual people or sensitive people, we tend to be open when we're walking around through life, and through this we sense all those energies. We sense good intentions, bad intentions. It's like overwhelming, and as soon as you are fully within yourself, it's like you're strong. You still have your sensitivity, but it doesn't knock you down. It's like you're able to deal with things and move through life easily.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yes,
That's beautiful. Well, people can find you in Austria, and I'm
yes.
here in Southern California.
Yes, I'm working in Vienna. Through God's grace, I'm also able to work far distance for people, for house cleansings, and I can be contacted through liftedandgrounded.com.
Beautiful. And
Yes.
for me, I'm based in Southern California in Corona. I offer in-person sessions and home cleansings. And also, I've been, so blessed by God to also be able to work remotely. So through video session or even through a prayerful petition, to offer the healings through a video session or remote home clearings as well. And you can find me at rosamysticaspiritual.com. Next time I talk with Alexander, we're going to be talking about relationships and how we are so both blessed to have manifested our relationships. And in your case, Alexander, your beautiful family through the power of the spiritual healing, through embracing God's love, but really opening the heart in such a way, like getting to that point where we can attract what is really good for us. And I know this is an important topic for a lot of my clients who want to attract that into their lives. So we're going to talk about that in our next conversation. So subscribe, follow us both, and you won't miss out on some really beautiful conversations and content coming up.
Have a great day and God bless you.
God bless you. And let us know if you have any questions or comments. If there's something that we talked about that you want to hear more of, let us know in the comments below.